Now, the United Nations humanitarian chief, Martin Griffiths, on Friday called for a cessation of hostilities in Gaza for an indefinite period to facilitate an unperiod humanitarian response and to give the people of Gaza a breather upon the terrible things that have been put on them during the last few weeks. Now, the humanitarian chief said that this assessment must come without condition for the release of all hostages. Yahya Jammeh has more details of that in this report.
Casualties continue to mount, with the death reportedly exceeding 11,000 people, and the majority of them are children and women. The actual total, however, is likely much higher, as figures have not been updated for 5 days due to a collapse of a communication network in Gaza. Addressing an informal plenary meeting of the General Assembly on the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, Griffiths emphasized the importance of the free flow of humanitarian aid without obstruction.
We must be able to move from ad hoc delivery of assistance to a continuous flow of aid. It's like anyone in any society, in any village, in any community. Civilians need to have their essential needs met. They need to know when the next treatment or delivery will happen. They need to know it will be unimpeded, and they need to know that aid will arrive.
The acting Deputy Commissioner General of the UN Agency for Palestine Refugees, Natalia Bushi, told the meeting that they cannot reach people in need or fully protect people on UN premises.
Aid workers are asked to be complicit in displacing the population, and we cannot fully protect people in UN premises under the UN flag. We cannot reach people in need, including thousands still trapped in the north. We cannot provide sufficient assistance to those we can reach. As our fuel stocks are almost completely depleted, our ability to work and deliver our mandate is under threat.
The World Health Organization's Director General, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, also called for the enabling of Al-Shifa Hospital to function as a hospital after its serious attack.
Al-Shifa Hospital must be enabled to function as a hospital. There are reportedly up to 300 health workers and 650 patients inside the hospital. Even if Hamas has used the hospital for military purposes, the hospital and indeed all healthcare facilities are never without protection under humanitarian law.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, for his part, stresses the disregard of humanitarian law since the war started.
No one is above the law. Breaches of international humanitarian law, even war crimes committed by one party, do not ever absolve the other from compliance with the principles of the law of war and their human rights obligations. All serious allegations of multiple and profound breaches of international humanitarian and human rights law, whoever commits them, demand rigorous investigation and full accountability. Where national authorities prove unwilling or unable to carry out such investigations, and where there are contested narratives on particularly significant incidents, international investigation is called for. Security Council Resolutions 2712 on Wednesday called, and I quote, for urgent and extended humanitarian pauses and corridors throughout the Gaza Strip, among other key demands on the parties. These repeated calls by the global community must not be ignored, but implemented at once. There must be a ceasefire on humanitarian and human rights grounds and an end to the fighting, not only to deliver urgently needed food and provide meaningful humanitarian assistance, but also to create space for a path out of this horror.
As resolutions continue to soar in the UN, the United Nations Security Council adopted Resolution 2712, which calls for the urgent and extended humanitarian pauses and corridors throughout the Gaza Strip, among other key demands on the parties. The High Commissioner said the repeated calls by the global community must not be ignored and should be implemented at once. He said there must be a ceasefire on the humanitarian and human rights grounds and an end to the fighting, not only to deliver urgently needed food and provide meaningful humanitarian assistance. More than 1.5 million Gazans are displaced, 18 hospitals have shut down, and hundreds of thousands are living in fear and continuing Israeli bombardment. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Mariama Cham.
And more development related to